fashions of the 1960s were diverse, with a multitude of many new trends being introduced. From modest to miniskirts, the beginning of this decade to the end was an extreme of style and attitude. Social mobility, daring fashions, photography, the music craze of the Beatles, and ethnic clothes all influenced the fashions of the 1960s. Fashions mirrored many social movements during this decade, highlighting the quest for equal rights for women. Women pursued their right to express themselves through the style of clothing they wore, freeing themselves from traditional styles in dress. The 1960s fashions were compared to the 1920s flapper era because there was such a revolutionary change in both of these eras. 40 years of conservative clothing styles reigned between the 1920s and 1960s until women began to seek a less modest style of clothing. Fashion and design were in an upheaval with this new cultural shift. In previous decades, these Paris fashions were exclusively designed for wealthy and influential women. These high-profile designers dictated the styles that women wore. Charles James, Pierre Balmain, and Hubert d'Avranches are just a few of the designers before the 1960s. These designers fashioned clothes for the likes of Marilyn Monroe and Grace Kelly. In the 1960s, the decline of haute couture fashions made way for the rise of clothing designs that appealed to the masses. At the beginning of the 1960s, young, common people began to dictate the fashions that women and men were wearing. Their preference and influence of style and designs became important. The mods and rockers were two British youth subcultures who influenced style and design. The mods wore suits and were clean-cut, while the rockers wore leather and had a pompadour hairstyle. Clothing sales increased when designers defined their new modern genre of clothing to appeal to the changing generation of young adults. Some new and different clothing styles appeared during this period of fashion history that seemed to go along with the new sounds of music. Short-sleeve overblouses coupled with a pleated skirt on a hip yoke basque made dancing to the twist easier. In 1966, Mary Quaint designed the eye-catching mini dress for skinny females that shocked the conservative churchgoers. Leslie Lawson, also known as Twiggy, modeled this mini dress, sometimes worn with tights or stockings and white go-go boots or stiletto heels. A modest version of the miniskirt was called culottes or a skort. They were worn by women wanting to fit in with the fashion of the day but still uphold their values of modesty. Jacqueline Kennedy, an elegant First Lady, influenced women across America with her classic tailored suits and ladylike dresses in the world of fashion. During this decade, she wore a famous pink suit with a pillbox hat in 1963 on the same day that her husband, John F. Kennedy, the 35th president, was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. The pillbox hat, designed by Halston, was a small woman's hat with a flat crown. The hippie movement exerted a strong influence on style. The look of Woodstock came about in this generation, which included bell-bottoms, peasant blouses, tie-dyed shirts, and a large array of overgarments with a psychedelic prints. Fashions have a way of repeating in different generations. A primary example was the drainpipe or stovepipe pants, made famous by Audrey Hepburn in the 1960s in many of her on-screen appearances. These are the same skinny jeans or pants women and men are wearing today. The decade of the 1960s embodied years that shifted a culture into an era of new choices, especially in the fashion industry. Women felt free and less pressure to dress like the glamorous and pristine housewives of previous decades. Liberating styles, bright colors, innovative prints, and whimsical trends encompassed a sector of society ready to embrace this shift in fashion. The 1960s launched a vast array of possibilities that has continued to shape and influence even the current styles of today.